Hi, it's Lerald, and I'm going to start this video off with a question. What is the fastest way to get rich? Win the lottery, obviously. Okay, but what's the second fastest way? Steal. Alright, and with that being said, let's talk about Heist. Heist is my favorite early currency strategy, especially in leagues where the main mechanic of the league doesn't really throw a lot of currency at your face in maps, and Phrecia League, because it's just Settlers League again, definitely qualifies. Additionally, the complex idle mechanic for Phrecia League is both really good for Heist in multiple ways, and also kinda difficult to wrap your head around in terms of making other complex, successful farming strategies. So I think Heist is really, really good right now, and as I am looking at my screen, literally saying all this stuff out loud, I am seeing throngs of people running around the Rogue Harbor. So I know a lot of other people agree. Heist is a valuable mechanic to learn the ins and outs of for normal PoE League starts as well, so even if you don't care about currency in Phrecia League, just learning Heist is going to be very valuable for the entire rest of the time that you play PoE 1. I did speak about Heist briefly in a video we put out over the last weekend, and I have some pretty big updates on that now that I've figured out the idle mechanic in a lot more detail. So I thought an updated Heist guide with a lot more detail on blueprints this time around would be a good idea, because that's how I've made all of the currency that I've gotten so far in this league, and I put together a build that is doing, well, it'll be my next video, and it's doing a lot of damage, like 30 million DPS without breaking a sweat. All right, let's get into it. So let's talk about Heist. What makes Heist special? It generates a ton of very basic currency, chaos orbs, gem cutters, prisms, jeweler's orbs, whatever, and it does so very cheaply. You can basically just alch and go, or actually scour and go. Replica uniques and special base types from Grand Heist can also be super valuable. I did a quick, maybe half an hour or so recording before this video, and I gathered, I think, 8 or 9 contracts in the span of 2 maps, and then 2 blueprints, and I ran all of those, and like I said, it took about half an hour, and I think I probably made 4 to 5 divines in that span of time. RNG being what it is, that's pretty good. I've gotten more raw divines from Heist than every other mechanic so far this league. I've also gotten more things that I was able to sell for divines or large amounts of chaos. Experimental bases that you can get from the end of Grand Heist can also just be well-rolled items, they have good stats on them, big life rolls and stat budget, high primary stats or high resistances, so they're often just worth a lot in the first couple weeks of a league because they're pretty good items, man. I think the best part about Heist is that you don't really even need anything to make it work. There's almost no damage requirement at all, 100,000 DPS is kind of enough to get going with Heist. A fast moving build is good, a lot of movement speed. Having a lot of movement speed is good, so Surfcaster and Daughter of Oshabi have an advantage right now in the Phrecia event. I would say Pathfinder is probably the best option in normal PoE, RIP Raider. Trickster is also pretty good. You can supplement your movement speed with Haste Aura, which you can get from your rogues, and there are several uniques that you can also use to get a lot more move speed. I'll just kind of point out a couple of them right now. Queen of the Forest is really good, especially if you're stacking a bunch of evasion. You can get a ton of move speed out of this. I think I have a Restless Ward laying around here somewhere, but that's obviously a really good one if you are playing a charge stacker. 4% move speed for Frenzy Charge. If you've got 8 or 10 Frenzy Charges, that's 30 to 40% more move speed. That's pretty good too. I have Devoto's Devotion around here as well. That's 20% move speed, pretty good for a helmet. And I don't have a 7 League Step, but that's a pair of boots that just have 50% move speed on them, and that's it. And that's fine. Those are really great for heisting, certainly. There are a lot of uniques that grant move speed. Those are just kind of some of the highlights. You don't need to optimize for damage in Heist. Like I said, a couple 100,000 damage will actually get the job done. You literally don't have to kill anything. You can do nothing. As long as you're able to stay alive and move quickly, you're doing fine. So sacrificing damage to get move speed totally works. In terms of what you do, just to give a basic overview, Heist is an alternate in-game to mapping. It's a bit like Delve, which is also an alternate in-game to mapping. You can run 1 or 2 maps and sustain enough contracts to run Heist for a while. I would say you could spend 10 minutes running maps in the current state of Phrecia League and probably farm up a couple hours worth of Heist materials. It's mainly about running through a long hallway full of dudes, grabbing an item, then running out the way you came in, except now that you've run through, all the doors have locked behind you, and there are dudes in the way trying to kill you. You can and you should click some reward chests along the way to the initial heist target, but the name of the game is really just being quick. So in terms of cost, the main expense of Heist is these right here, these rogue markers. They are just a currency. You can trade them at the currency vendor for chaos orbs. At the moment, they're like 500 to a chaos orb. They're pretty cheap. You do find them everywhere in the world, but especially in smugglers' caches, which also contain contracts and blueprints. These are kind of the map equivalents of heists, and that's kind of it. There are no scarabs. There is a map device option, which adds 2 additional smugglers' caches onto your maps for 5 chaos. That's a bit of a high investment while you're still working your way up to tier 16s, but once you're there, it absolutely is worth it. If you're committed to a full heist setup, it definitely pays off. I would say I'm making a pretty substantial profit, even at that 5 chaos per map cost. I'm probably making twice as much as I'm spending, so I feel pretty good about that too. But none of that's necessary. You can absolutely do like Alkengo maps with a heist idle setup and walk out of maps that cost you effectively nothing to run with 20 plus chaos worth of heist materials every map. And for Alkengo, that's pretty good. You know, you're just as quickly as you can run through a map, you can make chaos. All right, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about the idols instead of talking about the Atlas passive tree, which normally I actually think that the Atlas passive tree kinda isn't that great for Heist. There are some very good bonuses, but a lot of the scaling on Heist relative to other mechanics is just kind of low. Like, I think you're able to guarantee like a 40% chance to get a smuggler's cache in your maps compared to 100% of every other League mechanic through the Atlas passive tree. But that's not the case with the idols. You're able to guarantee well over 100% chance of getting a smuggler's cache. You can get that from some of the prefixes if I can find one here. All right, here we go. This is actually a perfect idol to show off here. So I have this idol here that has a prefix that says you have a 30% chance to contain a smuggler's cache. And so this mod here, if you scale it above 100%, you can get this as a prefix on like several different types of idols. If you scale this above 100%, it doesn't do anything. So you might as well just try to get it like basically feathered into around 100%. But then there's also the top suffix, the first suffix there. Your maps that contain smuggler's caches have a 25 to 35% chance to contain an additional smuggler's cache. That is a suffix that can only exist on these 2x1 or 1x2 idols. I think I have it on this 1x2 idol as well, you know, but the sort of 2-node idols can have this. And that's another mod that doesn't seem to scale beyond 100%. Like I couldn't get it up to 200%, but I got it up to like 190 something percent, and then I ran like a dozen maps, and I never got more than 2 caches. So I felt like that was good enough to confirm that essentially both of these, you know, they stop at 100%, but you're able to get 100% to guarantee a smuggler's cache in every map and then guarantee a second one as well, so that's still quite good. And then the other prefix on this one is just simply an increase to the number of blueprints that you find in your maps. I believe there is one for, if I can find, here it is, right here. One for increasing the number of contracts that you find in your maps. That's only available on the small idols. And then the suffix on the small idols that increases the chance to drop blueprints is actually quite good as well. It applies to your caches, whereas the 2x1 or 1x2 idols have just generic blueprint drop chance, which I think means like drop chance from monsters, which is relatively low. So I actually think that modifier isn't like massive, but it might apply to your smuggler's caches as well, which, you know, either way, I'm going to want more blueprints. So obviously that's all good. The biggest, most important things to get out of your idols, I think, is getting at least one of them that has this first suffix on this big 2x2 idol. And this is only available on the 2x2 idol. Huck accompanies you on opening the first smuggler's cache in each of your maps. This just gives you a ton of stat budget, a ton of speed in your maps. And since so much of Heist is about speed, you know, being able to get Huck, giving you a haste or a buff, giving you, you know, like a bunch of extra damage and XP gain, actually. This just winds up really being a huge benefit. And so I bought this this idol here, and it was pretty cheap. Like, just getting the Huck accompanying you on its own as a mod is like really not very expensive, maybe 10 chaos or maybe even less than that. Then the other Conqueror's idols I have were a bit more expensive, but they have a really awesome modifier on them. That final suffix, your blueprints have a chance to drop fully revealed. So hypothetically, you could get this all the way up to, you can only fit in 4 2x2 idols. So like 2 here and then 2 down here. So I think if you were able to get to like perfect rolls on all 4 of them, which would be quite expensive, you could get like 60%. I have 25. It's not perfect, but I'm pretty happy with it. Like, I've definitely found that I would say I get about a blueprint every map because I am running Heist on the map device. So I'm getting 4 caches in every map. So I'm finding about 1 blueprint every map, and then basically every 4th map, that blueprint is fully revealed. And a regular blueprint's worth about 10 chaos or so a piece, and a fully revealed blueprint is worth usually like 40 to 50 chaos, depending on whether it's a 3-wing or a 4-wing blueprint, and kind of, you know, how big of a bulk you're selling them in, basically. I tend to be running them myself because I just like to run them, but I could definitely sell them all. And, you know, the ability to get basically like 10 chaos a map from blueprints and then 40 to 50 chaos every 4th map is kind of a big pop, is really, really, really satisfying. I did have one map where I got 2 fully revealed blueprints, and I was real happy. It really, really rocked. So I do have PoE pulled up just to kind of show off the idols as well. You know, this very, very long list of stuff, and frankly, like, a lot of the modifiers aren't that amazing. I do have one in my small idols, actually, if I can just show this off here as well. Increased likelihood of the contracts being agility, deception, or engineering. So deception contracts are worth substantially more than any other kind of contract. They're worth like 8 chaos or so a piece in bulk, whereas most other contracts are anywhere from like 6 to 2. Deception contracts are just much, 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 much better, and so I have that suffix on, I think, 2 or 3 of my small contracts. Yeah, 3, I guess. That's kind of it for the minor idols. I would say, generally speaking, minor idols are usually kind of on the lower end of value for most mechanics, but for Heist, it does actually seem like they're pretty good. The Kamasan and Noble idols, both of the like 1x2 and 2x1, these have the exact same mods on them, they just are differently shaped. And there's kind of enough wiggle room to try and go for another mechanic as well. So I've been going for Expedition. So I have Expedition in all my maps, and I get, I think, more vendor refresh currencies, I think, is all I've really been able to afford. You know, it's worth it. I've made a little bit off of Expedition. Nowhere close to what I've made off of Heist, though. So the 2x1 idols and 1x2 idols are the ones that offer the chance to get an extra smuggler's cache. That's obviously great. You're effectively doubling the value of each map. You can also get this, like, Heist contracts are more likely to require level 3, 4, 5 jobs. This is okay if you're running them yourself. Level 5 jobs will be more rewarding. Not a huge deal, though, but, you know, fine if you're doing them self-run. Actually, you know, not really any value at all added if you're selling to other people. Then the 1x3, the Totemic, and the Burial Idol, the 3x1, or whatever, you know, those also, just like the 1x2 and 2x1, those have the same mod pool. They're just differently shaped. And I don't think I have any of these in my setup here. Yeah, I don't have any of these in my setup here. So there's an okay bit of value in here, you know, increased chance to get contracts. Like, sometimes you can get 2 contracts out of them. I did play around with this earlier, but it just didn't fit into my setup as easily with the stuff that I had available to me. The chance to get more rogue markers for each smuggler cache open in the area sounds nice, but the number on this is so low, 12% more. You're not getting like 1,000 rogue markers generally out of like your last one, so it's not even adding 1 chaos worth of value if you were to have like several of this mod. So I just don't think it's that great. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's some way to combine like a ton of these in a way that would be really good, but I don't really see it. And then kind of the same as with the like level 3, 4, and 5 contracts, the more likely to target precious targets is really only something if you were to go for like self-farming, this would help you get more. But if you're just selling contracts to other people, they're not going to care what the value of the target is. And then the Conqueror Idol is, you know, the big 2x2 one, and it has one other mod that I didn't talk about really, and that would be the chance for maps to have 6 extra smugglers caches. It's a great mod. Obviously that could synergize with some of the other mods along the way, but it's fairly rare. And, you know, actually getting one that has some of the other mods that I'd really like is just, you know, kind of expensive to get like that and blueprints dropping, have a chance to be fully revealed. It's also not a super high chance, but you could stack it a couple of times. I mean, you could stack it up to 4 times, so maybe 24% chance. That's pretty good, but not something I've gone for. Similar with chances to contain blueprints for each, or increased chance to contain blueprints for each smuggler's cache open in the map. Like, these two would synergize very nicely with each other, but just something I haven't really played with. All right, so now I want to talk just a little bit about difficulty scaling. And so I have like a level 72 and a level 83 contract here. And if I just pop this in, At Audia, you can see the objective of this level 72, 973. It's a forbidden lamp. That's what I would get out of it. 973 would be the sale value of that item to the fence, and then there's like the cost here of 318 to actually run it. So I would make, you know, whatever that is, like 600 something markers out of that as like my net profit. Not really that great. Whereas like this item level 83, it's 2736, and then the cost of running it still only like 380. So I'd make about 2300 or so out of this. So the point of this is that just like with maps, doing higher tier contracts is more rewarding. You just get more value out of doing higher level, and then also higher value heist targets. You know, this one's precious and this one's high value. Obviously, there's a difference there. However, one thing that doesn't change is the rarity, or one thing that doesn't scale is the rarity. And that is, as you can see, I scoured this. It's still worth 2736. None of the rewards from running the contract scale with rarity. None of the drops from the chests or like the end of a grand heist scale with rarity. It's only drops from the monsters in the contract, and those are pretty limited anyway. So if you really want to optimize, you're actually best scouring all of your contracts and all of your blueprints. You don't necessarily have to do that. Might be a waste of scouring orbs, but at the very least, rolling them is not necessary. It actually adds difficulty with no extra reward, so don't bother. All right, now I'm just going to briefly touch on the rogues. I did cover this in the recent video where I talked briefly about Heist, but I'm just going to hit it here just in case you missed that. You do start out with 3 rogues, Tibbs, Karsten, Isla, and the way you unlock Talina and Annette is by running a run with Tibbs that is successful. You'll unlock Talina, then you do that with Talina, you'll unlock Nanette, and then for unlocking all the rest of the rogues, you do a run with Karst, he'll unlock Huck, who unlocks Niles, then Venderi, and then Gianna. Do all of that, it only takes 1 run each, and as long as it's a successful run, you don't fail, you will unlock that rogue. Pretty easy to do, and it's all pretty easy to get started. You can actually just talk to Fakano over here and buy like contracts from him for each of the different skills at level 1 and use that as a way to progress through all of those characters. You can also find contracts throughout maps and potentially just buy them from other people for relatively cheap. People at this point in the league probably are trying to offload a lot of their low-level contracts and would probably be very happy to do so for the price of, like less than a chaos apiece. Now, each of the rogues has skills. There's a little bit of a complexity here. Most of them all just have like one skill that they really level up to level 5. That's the max, and they're like good at it. Karst is good at lockpicking. He's my favorite. I like Karst the most. I like his quips and his one-liners and stuff. He's my guy. Nanette has perception. Talina has agility. The one little wrinkle is that Huck is kind of a generalist, and he sucks as a heist guy. He's terrible, but we like Huck because we're able to get him to appear in our maps thanks to the idle bonus, normally a passive tree bonus, and then we're able to make him give us level 15 haste by putting Arrowhead. You can just pick up any of the ranged weapon items and roll that until it gets a haste aura, and then you just put that on Huck, and then whenever he's around you, he'll be giving you free haste, which is pretty awesome. He also just generically gives a powerful buff to allies, as it says here. He's like the one rogue who's good at fighting, but none of them do any good damage, so it's not really a big deal. Now, because of this, and because there are 9 skills, Venderi does a little bit of double duty. He's both a demolition guy and a trap disarmament guy. He's the best at both. And that's kind of the one little complex thing, is sometimes if you're just going to send him on a demolition job, you would want to put a demolition item on him. If you want to send him on a trap disarmament job, then you would want to put a trap disarmament item on him. So it's good to kind of have one of your stash tabs, or at least part of a stash tab, dedicated to some items that you can kind of keep around for swapping back and forth. That is something that I do. All right, just to hit on the important rogues, I think Karst, like I said, he is my favorite, of the guys, but I think also he is kind of the most valuable one to level up early because he helps with opening reward chests and not filling up your alert bar. Lockpicking is also just a good job. It gives you a lot of currency, treasure chests, so that's valuable. I think the next kind of valuable one to really work on is Venderi. He has kind of the opposite value as Karst. He gives you more raising of your alert level, but then he gives you a chance to double double everything that's inside of chests that you open in Heist. And he's responsible for 2 different skills, so that's pretty useful. And then Gianna, if you're wanting to do blueprints, and I would recommend it. I mean, that's kind of the point of this video, is really, really valuable for revealing blueprints and saving you a lot of markers on blueprint reveals, potentially 30%, or if you're able to level her job up to level 7 through some gear items, actually a 40% discount. That can get pretty expensive, but at least a 30% discount just by default is really, really good. So as I mentioned, gear is a thing that rogues are able to wear. They're able to wear pieces of gear that increase like the rarity of items dropped in heists and increase their job speed, and can like give you some combat buffs while you're not in lockdown, or even like share auras with you when they're nearby. There is something that I don't have on any of my pieces. This piece right here, the like theater disguise kit for Jana, or like the sulfur blowtorch for Isla, the one that corresponds to their skill. Not character level, it's job level. And I don't have that on any of these characters. That's actually quite expensive, but it is something you can roll on any of these items that correspond to like a skill increase, where you can roll increased job level. And so that would allow you to, for example, to like level Isla's trap disarmament up to 5 or 6 even, and then use her, say, instead of Venderi, to do trap disarmament level 5 missions. A lot of things that you could like have somebody run an off roll where you're able to benefit from some skill that they have. Maybe have Jana doing perception missions because you're able to level her up, and then you're getting more like cheap discount blueprint reveals. Also, skill level just increases the speed at which rogues do their jobs, and that makes heist faster, so that's good too. So in terms of doing contracts, they're pretty basic. I've already kind of talked about how to find them. There's a job, you pick the rogue that corresponds to the job, you run to the end, you can open some treasure chests along the way, and then you get to the end, you grab the item and you come back, and that's pretty much it. Not really all that much complexity to it, and that's kind of why I like it. Deception contracts are the best of all of the contract types for 2 reasons. Obviously, the first would be that Jana gives you the additional blueprint reveals, which is, it saves you a lot of contracts. It's super valuable. But also, deception contracts have no locked doors on the way out, so they're just very quick. Counter thaumaturgy is effectively a budget version of a deception contract, because Niles also gets some like lesser version of the discount from completing missions, just like Jana does, but it's not as good. It's like 10% instead of 30. Quite a big difference. All right, so now I want to talk about blueprints. Blueprints are my favorite aspect of Heist. They can have 3 to 4 wings, at least at higher levels. I think some of the very low level ones can actually only have 2, but that doesn't really matter. You're able to engage 3 rogues at once in each of the wings in a contract, and then there are tons of reward rooms throughout the contract, and also some very fancy end of the wing rewards, things like big stacks of currency or replica uniques, experimental bases, thieves' trinkets. So the setup phase starts with Fakano, I suppose his name is, and you will throw the blueprint in and reveal wings. And there's kind of a big cost to it. As you can see, 3,700 markers to reveal this wing, 3,500 to reveal this wing, pretty big. So if you have limited discounts, you can kind of save those for later on, because after you reveal one, like this is 33.56 with Niles, and this one's 31.93, so I'll reveal this one, again, 33.56 here. I reveal, it just went up by 20%. So saving contracts for later, or discounts for later, is really valuable, saves you quite a lot of markers, and there we go. I've saved quite a bit of markers on that discount reveal, and now this is fully revealed. So in terms of whether you should reveal the wings or not, it's something you're gonna kind of have to base off the price of a blueprint relative to Rogue's markers. At the moment, Rogue's markers are like 500 to a Chaos Orb, and blueprints are like 10 to 12 Chaos Orbs a piece, whereas wing reveals are 2,500 to 3,500 markers, as you just saw. So I would say that's like 5 to 7 Chaos or reveal. That's definitely easy to justify. What's maybe less easy to justify is like some of these reward rooms. These are not worth it. I'm not gonna make, several Chaos on average out of each of these different reward rooms, so I would not waste any markers on those at all. It is something you're going to want to check the relative prices on before you do your reveals, because prices can always change. Now, once you've done that, you want to go to the planning room and then apply rogues to each of the jobs. So I have a brute force job here. I only have Tibbs available. That's fine. Deception, Jana or Niles, both are fine. I'm just going to go with Jana because she has higher skill level. She'll be a little faster. Demolition, Venderi is the only guy who can do that, and he's who I would want anyway. Now here we have a perfect example, something I planned for. I have, unfortunately, level 5 trap disarmament and level 5 demolition, so I have to run Vinderi in both of these. Now, normally, if these were not both level 5, if one was level 5 and one was level 4, I would put Isla in here, or if I had a job skill level increase to put on Isla, I would throw her in here and have her do this as well. But I just don't have that available. I'm still gonna run the blueprint, but as you can see, I'm only able to put 2 guys in here. I have Vinderi doing double duty, and that means I actually do just lose out on a rogue. I lose some value in this wing, so this wing is probably not gonna be as good as the other 2, but you never know, RNG can be what it is. But whenever possible, you would try to fill every single one of the jobs in a wing with a different rogue. Even if you're running a suboptimal rogue, as long as you're getting 3 different rogues, that is still better than 2. Otherwise, I just try to put the most skilled rogue on the relevant job, never double assign a rogue, pretty simple. And now we can run the blueprint. Just run over to Adia, slap it in, and get started. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and just run through this wing of this blueprint as kind of an example here. Try not to die. Oh, nice, a level 5 cloak, that's pretty cool. We got ourselves a little demolition here. Okay, so I can see from our reward rooms, we got fossils here, that's not great. Fossils there, blight up here, that's not really that great either. So I think I'm just gonna try and hit regular treasure chests along the way as much as I can. I might stop and hit the blight, because you never know when you're gonna get a gold oil, even though I probably won't. This feels like a waste of time, but I'm gonna do it anyway. Just in case, maybe the game knows I'm on the streamer client. All right, well, not in that one. You do always want to protect your rogues whenever you're having them do a job. Yeah, all right, that was a total dud. Definitely made less from that than I could have from just regular lockers. That's okay. So one of the mods that you'll occasionally see in your contracts and in your blueprints is alarm ends immediately upon hitting max alert level. I don't remember exactly how it's phrased. I definitely didn't say it right, but basically it goes into lockdown mode when you hit max alert level. So because of that, I try to never really hit a max alert level before I make it to the final room. I like to just make it into the final room and then kind of go from there. Grab whatever's here and then leave. And let's see, Banishing Blade. I don't know how valuable these Banishing Blades are, so something I will do, because these final rooms in a Grand Heist are usually pretty safe, is I will actually just pull up PoE Ninja and just type in some of these base types. All right, so 25 Chaos, that's not bad. It's item level 85, so maybe I could sell that for 25 Chaos, although probably not. Heathen Wand, that's nothing. Replica and Fractum, that's worthless. I don't think Void Fangs at item level 84 are worth anything either, but we can just check. Yeah, nothing, 15 Chaos. So I'm pretty sure that this Tailoring Orb is the most valuable item here. But let's see. 25 Chaos, that's gonna be a lot easier to sell than a Banishing Blade, so I'm gonna grab that. And one note I wanted to add in here is that the little safes that you can find in some of the end rooms, I think there's another one in this area, but maybe not. Some of the safes, for whatever reason, they have a very high item rarity to it. All right, let's just grab the Tailoring Orb and go. So I always click the safe. They do take a little while to open up, which is a slight inconvenience, I suppose. But I have gotten tons of divines over the years from those safes, and more tons of valuable div cards as well. So just something you always kind of want to tap along the way. And then I'm able to open a couple of chests after we're in lockdown, thanks to Tibbs. His superpower is opening up chests after lockdown is over. All right, let us out. Let me out. Phasing is also really good to have in Heist, although I don't have it on this character. It is definitely a worthwhile investment. Block definitely is a really nice stat to have. Evasion is good to have, some kind of defense, any sort of defense where we're able to get life or yes back on block is good too. Okay, and so one thing I'll actually close on with the blueprints here is that when you finish a wing of a blueprint, you can go back to the Rogue's Harbor, and you have 15 minutes after you've left to get back in before the portal closes. But you can go back to the Rogue's Harbor, empty out your stash if you need to. I didn't actually need to, I had more than enough room in my inventory, but just for the sake of wrapping up the video and also showing that off, because sometimes you do fill up your inventory, and if you have like a 4-wing blueprint, you know, you don't want to have to like pick and choose the stuff that you leave behind, and you don't have to. All right, so that is blueprints, that is Heist. It's a pretty simple mechanic, but there's a lot of depth to it, a lot of complexity. It's really quite well made. I think it's really stood the test of time. You could tell from how many people are all running around here at like 4 in the morning or whatever that it's very popular, and it's definitely my favorite at the start of a league. And like I said, I've made quite a lot of divines doing this already in the league, so I could only recommend it. All right, that's it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video and you want to see more like it. And if you want to support us even further, consider becoming a channel member. Thanks for watching, and I'll probably see you in the Rogues Harbor. Bye.